Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna go on a rant because there was little sliver of hope for Star Wars, and I did a video on it a few days ago that they were going to do an Old Republic film, or a trilogy of films that was set in the Old Republic universe. And we had just a small sliver of hope there, just a little sliver, like, oh, they're going to do something good, they're going to do something that the fans want. Take a wild guess what just got dropped today, that the who was going to be the director of that first film. Roundhead man baby Rian Johnson is going to be the director of the first Star Wars film in this new trilogy. What the hell is wrong with Lucasfilm? Honestly, what is wrong with them? What do they have an imbalance in all of their brains? Do they drink out of a poisoned well? Is that what this is? That somebody's been poisoning their water supply? They all have mercury poisoning? Because that's what it seems like. Because that guy directed a film that destroyed the Star Wars fan base and caused the film immediately after it to flop, and will probably cause episode 9 to do less than expected. I would assume. I would assume it's going to do under $1 billion, which I would assume they expect it to make a billion, or at least a billion or more. Um, but you choose that person over anybody else to direct that film. And from what I understood from the article that I read, and by the way, I read this article 3 times to make sure this wasn't an April Fool's Day joke, because it is April 1st. And I thought, oh my God, if they are, I thought it might be a troll. I legitimately thought it might be a troll. It is not a troll, according to this article. It is not a troll. It is true. And apparently, the Ryan Johnson trilogy and the DB Weiss and David Benioff trilogy apparently were always one and the same, even though they were reported originally to be two separate Star Wars trilogies. So, literally, they kind of pulled that one out from under us, because we were all kind of hoping that the DB Weiss and David Benioff trilogy was going to be separate, and we could enjoy that separately. But now we have this idiot lumped in with them. Now, look, I know there are people out there that like The Last Jedi. I personally think it's a flaming piece of garbage. But regardless of if the movie sucks, the visceral response from the people at Lucasfilm towards the Star Wars fan base after this transpired, and the 6 months of just back and forth, just insane things that were put out on social media by actors, by everybody that was involved. This is just it's like getting it's essentially you just kneecapped your whole franchise. You just kneecapped the only sliver of hope you had left for getting some fans back getting their butts into movie seats, and then getting their dollars purchasing merchandise, because the merchandise sales have been hemorrhaging ever since Last Jedi, and everybody knows that. It's not news that the merchandising branch of Star Wars is completely in the fucking toilet. That's not news. You can look at world class bullshitters. They walk through even Toys R Us when it was in its death throes, couldn't sell Star Wars toys. That is insane when you want to look at it. And the fact that the entirety of the main fan base, like the people that have been watching this stuff since they were little kids in the late 70s and early 80s, people that are going into their 50s now, those were the people that were buying tickets to Star Wars. Buying, going and seeing all the Star Wars movies 2, 3, 4 times. Those are the people that are your core, and you chose to ignore them. And Ryan Johnson is just the probably the biggest target or the biggest person that's associated with that, because The Last Jedi was a terrible film. And it's not a terrible movie in the sense that it's made terribly. It's a terrible movie. It's a bad movie in the sense that it destroyed the Star Wars base, and that again, this goes into a lot of stuff that I talk about. Demographics. Look, Star Wars was mainly marketed towards men and boys. It's mainly marketed towards the male demographic, and look, I have no problem with them trying to include women in the conversation because there's a lot of girls that do love Star Wars. But when you switch everything over and you just directly market to girls and you forget about your demographic, you're going to destroy your brand. And Star Wars has been the most prolific brand ever in terms of a merchandising standpoint for movies, for movie tie-ins. And look, that base is what kept things going through the prequels. That base is what kept things going through, the years when we didn't really have a lot of Star Wars, from the late 80s all the way through most of the 90s, when there wasn't any Star Wars. And even the 10 years in between Revenge of the Sith and Force Awakens. And those people were the reason why Force Awakens got to $2 billion. Uh, and again, the reason why I bring this back is because Ryan Johnson is one of those core people that was involved in all of that, in the alienation of the core fan base for Star Wars. And it is a terrible idea. I don't know why they didn't fire Kathleen Kennedy when they had the chance. Hell, but I'm at a loss for why they didn't fire her, other than the fact that they couldn't find anybody else. But even at that, why would you hire her on for 3 more years? Why would you do that? Just do it as an interim thing. Say, okay, you're an interim person until we can find somebody else to replace you, as opposed to signing you on to a full contract. Or even just fire her and just have a few select people run the whole thing. Uh, just say you're running it, you're running it, you're running it. You're people that work for Disney. You're going to run this. It's completely insane to me why they hired her back. It's completely insane to me why they have made this choice now, because they've essentially they've sunk this new franchise they're trying to launch before they've even launched it. Because this film is going to get boycotted harder than Solo did, a lot harder than Solo did, and it's going to. I mean, honestly, I would say that this thing is going to bomb just based on that alone, because Star Wars fans aren't going to forget about what happened. They still haven't forgotten. It's been over a year now. It's been almost a year and a half since The Last Jedi came out, and people are still talking about it. This is not going to go away, Lucasfilm. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the last nail in the coffin of Star Wars. It is dead. It is officially dead. They can't do anything after this to bring it back. It's dead. It's gone. They have managed to kill what was thought to be an unkillable franchise. And hopefully they don't do the same thing with Marvel, even though it looks like it's going down that road. But this has been a rant. I if you think I'm overreacting, if you think that if you actually do want to see this movie or anything else, you can put it in the comments below. Uh, Put a like on the video, hit the bell for notifications, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?